is Congressman Troy Carter, and I will be joined shortly by Charlotte Cravins. Charlotte is a Louisiana citizen and disability advocate. She's the co-lead of the newly formed Louisiana chapter of Little Lobbyists. In June, she and her son, Landry, who was born with Down syndrome, joined Little Lobbyists on Capitol Hill to explain how proposed cuts to Medicaid would devastate families like hers. Even with private health insurance, her family was pushed to the brink of bankruptcy because of her son's hospital bills, and they are finally approved. Were finally approved by Medicaid. Yet now, we find ourselves in a dire situation. I'm so happy to have her join us to talk about what these shutdowns mean. We're going to talk about this, and we're going to offer our Republican members to listen to this, join the discussion, help us recognize that these are not just names on a spreadsheet. These are real people. Charlotte, so happy to have you here with us to be a part of this discussion. We may be experiencing a little bit of technical difficulty, but we'll continue this discussion. Charlotte will be joining us. Charlotte is with us now. Charlotte is a brave soldier who has been an advocate in this space. And I'm so happy that she's joining me. I'm here at the nation's capital. She's back in Louisiana, and we're collectively fighting for the American people, fighting to make sure that the ACA tax credits are available, fighting to make sure that people are not thrown off the rolls of Medicaid, fighting for people who are real life people like Charlotte and her son Landry.
Thank you for having us, Congressman. I really appreciate it. Thank you for the introduction. Like you said, my son Landry has Down syndrome. He was also born partially blind. He cannot see in his right eye. He relies on Medicaid. That bio is actually a little bit old. Because we recently did file for bankruptcy. Our very first year of his life, we did not have Medicaid. He was in the hospital for 61 days, and when he got out, his medical record was so large that it was very difficult to get it into the Department of Health in order to get him affirmed or get him approved. So we finally were able to months later after his first birthday, and by then we had been paying hundreds of dollars in copays a week, which is just it's not something that can be sustained for any normal family. And so yeah, actually last Wednesday, a week ago, we filed bankruptcy. So that's the consequences of this kind of situation where you're cutting funding. I mean, in that case, funding wasn't cut, but if we were to lose Medicaid again, we would just find ourselves right back in that situation. So it really is a dangerous, dangerous situation for millions of families in this country.
This is demonstrative of what we're dealing with in Louisiana alone. In Louisiana alone, we have some 43,000 people who see the healthcare costs rise if the Republicans let these tax credits expire. Extending the Affordable Care Act ensures that working class families like yours can continue to access lower monthly premiums, making healthcare affordable for millions of families. The significance of your courage, Ms. Cravins, for being here to talk about your situation with Landry is to demonstrate to the American people, but also demonstrate to our counterparts in Congress and in the White House. This is no joke. This is nothing to use as a political ploy. These are real families, real people. This is your child who you love unconditionally, who will be impacted by this.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought up the ACA. Before the ACA, kids like Landry were considered uninsurable. In a few months' time, like I said, he was in the hospital for 61 days. They used to have lifetime caps on insurance for people, and our insurance at the time, I have private insurance as well, and his insurance was charged up almost $500,000 for his NICU stay. So he would have been considered uninsurable before the ACA. And to repeal these subsidies and then have people thrown off of their insurance would just ruin so many lives. it's really unconscionable that they would use people's lives like this, children's lives, disabled people, disabled children's lives as a bargaining chip for their selfishness to give billions to billionaires. It's outrageous.
Reverse Robin Hood, taking from
Yeah,
those in need and giving to those with greed.
absolutely.
Without these credits, many people will be forced to drop their coverage altogether, leaving them uninsured at risk of crushing medical debt. In your case, having to file bankruptcy, a young lady and with so much promise ahead of you, having to file bankruptcy because of the necessity of caring for your children. Keeping these tax credits in place helps working family manage the rising costs. We know that without this, these are working people who make too much money to get any other kind of help, but not enough money to be able to afford private insurance. This is that middle gap that many Americans fall into, and some nearly 50,000 in Louisiana alone. That's why I applaud you for your courage to talk about the real life circumstances, having to file for bankruptcy, having to work every day, but still not have quite enough to care for a circumstance that happens to all of us. Listen, having a loved one with poor health or having a condition that requires around the clock care, but for the grace of God, could be any of us. And we should be
Absolutely.
sensitive enough to understand that this is a real battle.
Yeah, disability, I always say it can strike anyone at any time. It's not discriminatory. It can happen to anyone, and anyone can find ourselves in this situation. Prior to Landry, my husband and I were thriving financially. We had just bought a house, a nice house here in Baton Rouge, and we were doing great. We didn't expect to have a child with extensive health needs. No one does, and so we found ourselves unprepared for that situation. But so anyone could find themselves in that situation. And then again, like you mentioned, Medicaid expansion and people falling in that gap. I mean, the ACA expansion and the marketplace and whatnot. Whenever I'm an attorney, whenever I was in law school, my last year of law school, Medicaid finally got expanded here in Louisiana as part of the ACA that had been passed years prior, and the prior administration just had refused to accept the Medicaid expansion. So but I had aged out of my parents' health care at that point. So I found myself in another kind of gap that the ACA helped cover. And so my last year, I was finally able to be on Medicaid while in school. So it's not just for people who are sitting at home doing nothing. Like I was getting an education so that I could be a member of society that contributed one day, and I am. And so Medicaid is just it's a valuable service to all kinds of people.
And for those who would suggest somehow this is a giveaway, you're an attorney. You're a well-educated, professional individual that pays taxes, that goes to work every day. But even with your having a law degree, even with your being a very successful individual, the ever-rising cost of medical attention, particularly for individuals who are raising a loved one that has a disability that requires exorbitant amount of money, these tax credits fill in the gap to allow you to still provide for your family without having to what you already had to do, file bankruptcy. Now our hope is that we will get our Republican counterparts to come back to the table to understand that this is not a game. Um,
Right.
they shut the government down. We've been here in Washington. I'm in Washington now, and we've been committed to staying at the table, to do what it takes to open the government, to make sure that we extend the tax credits so hardworking individuals like you are able to still provide for your child or your children without having to lose everything you've worked for. This notion that people who use the ACA tax credits or people who are on Medicaid, it's a farce and a lie and a disingenuous statement to suggest that these people are just at home waiting for freebies. Just isn't true. It's a horrible propagandic lie. Ms. Cravens, you and your husband are shining examples. So many
Thank you.
others that we've had to come to DC to tell their stories about their loved ones. We've had teachers, we've had police officers, we now have a lawyer, we had a college professor just the other day, all who tell their real life stories. And listen, we love you. We're going to keep fighting. We're not going to give Trump
Thank you, Congressman.
a blank check to ignore the needs of people in Louisiana or anywhere in the country. Keep fighting. know that we hear you, and hopefully others will now hear you as you've been able to tell your story, that of you, your husband, and your son Landry, who we'll continue to pray for and work for to make sure that these cuts are restored, to make sure that Medicaid is brought back, that we don't have the effects of this big ugly law that threatens to kick 17 million people off the rolls. Now 43,000 people in Louisiana who will be impacted because of the ACA credits being expired. We're here for you.
Thank you so much, Congressman. I just want to add one more thing. My son, he was very wanted. The Republicans often say they're pro-life, and my husband and I spent 5 years trying to conceive him. We learned very early on that he had Down syndrome. Clearly, he was very wanted. He's here. We were offered termination multiple times, didn't accept it because, like I said, he was very wanted. And now for him to have his entire life pulled out from under him by these cuts is just absolutely devastating. This isn't what they're calling the Schumer shutdown. It's the Republicans' shameless shutdown, in my opinion. It's a selfish shutdown, and it's just unacceptable and amoral.
There's no doubt about that. Charlotte Cravins, a Louisiana citizen and a disability advocate. She's the co-lead of the newly formed Louisiana chapter of Little Lobbyists. Your courage, your commitment, your love for your child, your love for others that are in this space is quite admirable. I cannot thank you enough for being a part of this discussion. And I'm hoping that our Republican counterparts will see this. They will recognize just how inhumane this is. And I want you to know that as a member of Congress proudly representing Louisiana, I am not going to run. I am not going to stop fighting. My heart bleeds for you, but I want to do more than just give you my words. I want to
Thank you.
continue to give you action.
Thank you, Congressman. We really appreciate it, and it's very noticed. We really, really appreciate it.
God bless you. Keep fighting. And I hope everyone will
Thank
continue to
you too.
watch these discussions as we bring real people to life to talk about issues that are real. That these ugly cuts, this ugly law, this ugly notion of shutting down our government is unfair, reckless, irresponsible. And Democrats are going to stay in the fight to protect people like Charlotte and Landry. God bless you.
Thank you.